Hi, everyone. Welcome back. If you're new, I'm so glad you're here. I hope you stick around. My name is Heather, and I just like to talk about books. If that's your thing too, then get comfortable, grab a beverage, and come hang out with us. Before I get into this, no matter what is said in my videos, I encourage everyone to pick up any book that sounds interesting to them, that speaks to them. I am not here to tell you what you should think. I'm just here to tell you what I think. I think that's important to point out. You should come here to hear other people's opinions and maybe you can relate to them, but agreeing on everything, how boring. That should never be the goal. YouTube would be severely lacking without variety. I hope we all can embrace uniqueness and differences and a shared love of books. That's what I'm here to do, is just share what I loved about my own reading experiences. Welcome to my August reading wrap up. Today we're going to discuss 10 plus books that I read in August. It was a little bit, I mentioned this in a previous video, it was a little bit slump-ish for me, but not full-on slump. It's just slower than had been reading in previous months, which is fine. Like 10 books is still insanely good. The first book I'm going to talk about is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This would have been my fifth Riley Sager book, I believe. Fourth or fifth. I gave this one 3.25, 3.5 star. It's not a terrible rating. I didn't hate it. Majority of the book, I had a great time reading it. It was a good experience. However, the twist at the end was not for me. For those of you that have read it, you know the direction it took. I did not care for it. Everything up to that point felt, it was just great. It was creepy. I loved the lake atmosphere. I was attached to characters. I loved the relationships, the dynamics between the characters. It was strictly the twist that brought it down for me. I'm not going to tell you what kind of twist it was because obviously spoilers. What this book is about: a woman named Casey Fletcher, who is an actress who has recently lost her husband, and she decides to retreat to her family house, lake house in Vermont. While she's there, she's by herself, she's bored, maybe a little tipsy off some bourbon, and she finds a pair of binoculars. So what is she going to do? Start spying on the neighbors. Rich neighbors across the street. There's going to be some drama probably. So she starts snooping around, keeping an eye on them. Long story short, after watching them for a while, things are obviously not as good as they seem, and she starts getting swept up in the relationship between a husband and wife across the street. The wife is a former model, and the husband is some guy in tech. So wealthy, seemingly perfect from the outside. Things often never are, though. She ends up befriending the wife and things just start coming to light. Like I said, I liked majority of this book. It was just the twist that really killed it for me. It's not a terrible book by any means. I just didn't love it. Second book this month was Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. This was my first book by this author, and this book lived up to its reputation. It is very dark, so check your triggers. That being said, I gave it 4.5 stars. I loved it. I think that this is truly a thriller. I loved the characters, the storyline. It's not a super short book, but I breezed through it in a couple of days. I was just on the edge of my seat, and this book was just a big, what the fuck? Wild. And every step it took, as it got deeper and deeper, I was just like jaw on the floor. Very graphic and hard to read at times. So like I said, check your triggers, but highly recommend if that sounds like something that's up your alley. Yeah, it was very good in my opinion. All right, the next book I'm going to talk about, we're gonna take a swing in a different direction here. Zodiac Academy by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti, aka the Twisted Sisters. This book, let me start off by saying I am not one of those people who is into zodiac signs, astrology, like any of that. It's not my thing. A few of my close friends are super into it, like love that for them. It's just not for me. Why did I pick up this book then, do you ask? FOMO. It's strictly FOMO. I just wanted to see. I gave it a 1.75 stars. This is one of the cringiest books I have read in a long time. I did a tandem read with it, with the audiobook and hard copy. I did, it's bingeable. I completed it pretty quickly, but woof, I was not a fan of this one. I see the potential in this storyline though. The setting, the relationships, the dynamics between characters, I can see it, but just the dialogue and everything was so cringy for me. It was difficult not to, I was just shaking my head like 75% of this book, it felt like. However, I have heard that it massively improves from book 1 to book 2. I know this is a very long series, so there is time and room to improve quite a bit. I may at some point give this second book a chance. If I equally hate the second one, then I'll call it quits. I'll be done. But I may give the second one a chance. If I can see the potential and see the improvement from book 1 to book 2, then I may continue on. We'll see. I'm not obviously on the edge of my seat to continue on in this series, but essentially what this book is about, I believe two sisters find out that they are the heir to, is it some like Fae kingdom or something like that, but in order to get to the throne, they have to make it through Zodiac Academy, attend the school. There are already people or students there that believe they have earned their way to the throne, and so they do everything they can. Essentially, this is like a bully romance. I know that that's not, if that's something that turns you off, maybe steer clear of this one, but it's not something that is a deal breaker for me. So I went straight into it. There are obviously magical characters. The powers that you have are dependent upon your zodiac signs, and yeah, they just essentially have to make it through and survive this school under immense like bullying from their peers. So that's the broad overview of this book. Like I said, I see the potential with it. I may continue, but this one was a low rating for me. I did not like it. It read pretty young for me. It was just, yeah, some of the dialogue and the references were just, obviously it had an uphill battle with someone who's not really into the whole zodiac thing. So obviously going into it, I was already apprehensive. So there was a lot working against it, but it may work for me down the road. Never say never. I will never say never. There have been series in the past that I did hate book 1, and I went on to read more and ended up liking or even loving it. So I can't write this off 100%. This book, though, no go for me. The next book that I read was Direbound by Sable Sorensen. I loved this book. There have been a lot of comparisons to Fourth Wing. I can see it as someone who really did enjoy Fourth Wing, read it earlier on this year, and I loved it. I also loved this one. It is Fourth Wing, but with dire wolves instead of dragons. And I typically am not someone that is drawn to stories with the wolf storyline, whether that be werewolves or dire wolves. It's just not really my thing normally. But like I said, I'm not going to write off a book just because of that, because there are almost always exceptions. This is one of them. It is not a small book, but so bingeable. It was from beginning to end. I loved it. I loved the character dynamic. I loved the world. Yeah, I can't wait for the second installation in this book. I gave it a 4.5 stars. It's not a perfect 5-star for me yet. However, I very much see this series becoming a 5-star god tier series for me. If it's done right, we'll see what happens. I believe it's been picked up for Trad Publishing, and the second one is due to come out early next year, first quarter of next year. I'll double check that and put the date up on the screen. But yeah, I cannot wait. I hope it doesn't disappoint. Sometimes these series break your heart because they go in a direction that you weren't hoping for, or they're just a letdown. So I hope they don't sacrifice the writing on this one, because I am so stoked. And this is one of the best fantasies I've read in a really long time. The next book I read was, take it easy, Heather, The Bright Years by Sarah Damoff. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that totally wrong. I liked this book. It was pretty good. However, for me, after reading it, it was forgettable. You know what I mean? As soon as I put the book down, while I was reading it, I didn't really have an urge to DNF it or anything. Like, it was intriguing. The writing was good. This is definitely a slower paced literary fiction, and it didn't stick with me, I think is the big thing. It gave it 3 stars, which is not a bad rating for me. I know for some that is a terrible rating. For me, it's not. I liked more than I disliked this book. It is just not a memorable one. There were plot points in it that I enjoyed and that I related a lot to, and they really hit home for me. And I thought that the author articulated those experiences really, really well, but I didn't find myself emotionally attached to the characters in this one. And that's a huge thing for me. For most of my highly rated books, I am in the shoes of these characters and I am empathizing with them. I am relating so deeply with them. And that just wasn't the case with this book. It was just a fine experience. Not terrible, but forgettable. So it's a 3-star for me. Next book is Saving Six by Chloe Walsh, book number 3 in the Boys of Tommen series. I am really enjoying this series. I do typically enjoy darker reads. These are dark books. Check triggers. Do not be fooled by the YA label on it. I personally know nothing YA about this series. Just because the characters in a book are young adults doesn't mean the content is appropriate for young adults. So I strongly advise that you check triggers, look into that before diving in, because these are sad. They are heartbreaking. They are heavy. I love that sort of read. So the first 2 books followed one couple, and this is the second couple in the series in the same world. I am loving it. I love the dynamic connected to all the characters, the found family. I love what Chloe Walsh does with these. This is only the second couple that I'm diving into within this world, but with the first book was not a 5-star for me, but I felt like with the 2 books together as a whole, the couple's entire story, it is a 5-star. So I just think I need the full context. I need the full circle of each couple. So this book is around a 4 for me so far. That's the same as the first 2 books were in Boys of Tommen for me. I believe once I dive into Redeeming Six, I already have it on my shelf ready to go. I have a strong feeling that it is going to be a 5-star pairing for me as well. I am trying to include one of these a month on my TBRs until I'm through the series. I know it's incomplete so far. A new one just came out not that long ago. I'm excited to make it through, but I'm not rushing. I like to enjoy these and kind of pace myself. So I will try to include Redeeming Six on my next TBR. I didn't pick one out of the jar for that, but I still like to throw them in because that mood normally strikes me at least once a month. So I'll try to include that in my next wrap up, hopefully. We'll see. The next book I read was All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. This is only my second book by this author. I have loved both of them. Were consistent. This is becoming a consistent great author for me. For slow burn, which I love a good slow burn romance. They're not small books that she writes, but this woman does a slow burn right. So mad props to her. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. They are above average read for me. I gave this one a 4.25 star. I loved it. Highly recommend. Not much more to say about that, but yeah, I love her tropes. I love her, like I said, the slow burn. I love the relationships, both romantic and not romantic, the friendships within these books. She is a phenomenal writer. Big fan. The next book that I read was If We Were Villains by ML Rio. Sorry, my daughter's outside. I'm seeing if she's going to come in here. Nope, we're good. If We Were Villains by ML Rio. I gave this book 4 stars. Really enjoyed this one. You hear this book compared to The Secret History quite a bit. I read The Secret History last year with my book club. I enjoyed it. It is a lot more dense, I would say, than this book. I would say that this book is the more approachable version of that. I loved them both. Don't get me wrong. I would just say that I definitely see the similarities between the two, but The Secret History is a lot more dense of a read. And I would say that all of the characters in The Secret History are a lot more unlikable. I think there is more gray with If We Were Villains, and I liked that aspect. So I gave this book a 4-star. I do recommend this one. I loved the university vibes. I think one of the things that wasn't my preference was the Shakespeare element. I liked it was certain scenes where they were kind of mirroring the scenes with what the characters were going through. However, I think some of it was overkill with the dialogue, with them reading through scenes and acting them out. I believe some of it was a little bit much because I found myself at times just skimming through it because I didn't want to read a Shakespeare play, you know? So props to Shakespeare, but it's not my favorite kind of readings. That was kind of the only really big thing that bothered me about it. But other than that, highly recommend this book, and especially for the fall. Last book, but certainly not least, I read Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Oh my God, where to even start? I loved this book so much. I've read quite a few Taylor Jenkins Reid. At this point, this was my 5th of hers, I believe, and it's my favorite so far. What I love so much about Taylor Jenkins Reid is her ability to take, at least for me, seemingly mundane or just topics I'm not really interested in and make me care so much. So, what this book is about a woman in the 80s who is trying to become a part of the NASA space program. So in her relationships along the way, how it affects her personal relationships at home and just how she navigates all of that. That's a very, very broad overview. I don't want to give too much away, but I cared so much for these characters. At one point, I was just ugly crying, like tears dripping on the pages while reading this book. Particularly her relationship with her niece. Good Lord, that was so emotional. Like, holy shit. Like, that hit my feels. It was so touching and I loved it. But you know what? Every single relationship in this book, the character growth, the character evolution throughout it all, just the plot, it got me. I think it was just such a spectacular read. And fun fact, I normally steer clear of books involving outer space because it terrifies me. Outer space scares the shit out of me. Irrational maybe, but it is just so vast and unknown and just overwhelming to me. I'm just fascinating, yes, terrifying, yup. But as I mentioned earlier, there are always exceptions to the rule. So I will not dismiss a book solely based on one element. I will give it a shot. Other books that have fallen into this category that are set in space or involve some sort of space, Project Hail Mary and The Martian, Andy Weir. I loved both of those books. Both heavily take place in space. So never dismiss a book solely on superficial things. You may be missing out on an opportunity to fall in love with another book. So this was one of those for me. Atmosphere was incredible. My favorite book, undoubtedly, without a doubt, be on my top 10 favorites of the year and probably ever. I just really enjoyed my experience reading this. I flew through it. I got to pick the book for book club this month for my in-person book club, and it was my pick, and I am so happy I did because this was an amazing book. And then this month I also had one DNF, Knock Knock Open Wide by Neil Sharpson. So this one I was told to read. I wouldn't say it's a recommendation, but I was asked to read it by a colleague of mine at the library. She didn't tell me anything about it. She just said some people in her life had recommended it to her and she had thoughts that she wanted to unload. And so she asked me to read it so I could be the person she vented to about it. So I started it. This one is, I did DNF it at about 50%. The reasons for that, it's such a bummer because I could see the horror elements, the spooky elements of this, the atmosphere, the horror storyline was so enticing to me. It sounded so up my alley, so good, but there were certain aspects of it that I just couldn't get. I couldn't get on board with, and I just didn't enjoy that. So I like a couple of them is when a male author, I'm not saying it can't be done at all. I'm just saying it gets tricky when a male author is writing a sapphic relationship or writing from a female's perspective. I think it just takes some research because ultimately we do think differently. We do operate, we function differently. So this had a queer female relationship in it, And I think the author missed the mark on capturing that accurately. Wasn't believable at all. It seemed far-fetched. It seemed not how any female in my world or that I have known throughout my life would have operated under those circumstances. It just didn't seem believable. And it was too, like, at times, and I was just like, oh, is this a fantasy of yours? And I'm like, ick. It just gives me the ick sometimes. The second thing, if there's any inkling of animal cruelty in a book, no matter how small, I'm immediately, like, while reading it, just audibly like, nope. Like, it is such a put the book down. Like, I don't, and I kept reading beyond that point. I kept trying to read beyond that point, but there are certain things I just couldn't get past, and it just wasn't an enjoyable experience for me, and I knew it wasn't going to be an enjoyable experience, so I put it down. I'm really trying this year. I'm getting a lot better at it, at DNFing when I'm not having a good time, because some books are just not going to be for me, and that's okay. That's okay. I saw the potential with this one. The spooky elements were there, but it just didn't play out in a way that worked for me, which is cool. So that's the one I put down this month, and those are the books that I read. I hope you enjoyed my August reading wrap up. We'll see what next month has in store. I already posted my September TBR, so hopefully you can go and watch that and see some of the books that will be included in my next wrap-up video. If you enjoyed wrap-ups, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you're interested. I am here for the long haul. Like I said, my name is Heather. I have already met and talked with a few of you who have come over and commented on some of my first videos, and I love it. Everyone's been so kind and welcoming. What a great kickoff to my YouTube journey. I hope you stick around. I love you all, and I'll see you on the next one, okay? Have a great day. Bye.